Product marketers have a massive opportunity that I don't think is talked about enough, and that's in supporting sellers for their first demo. Because here's the deal. The first demo is make or break, not just for your product, but for how it's perceived against the competition. And if you ask most sellers what they're focused on during that first call, the answer is usually building rapport, running through the deck, answering questions. What they're not always thinking about is competitive positioning. But if you're first into the deal, you have the chance to set the bar. If you're second, you need to know how to reframe the conversation in your favor. Either way, PMMs have a huge opportunity to help sellers win those moments, not just with more slides, but with a sharper strategy. And it starts with finding your value edge. Your value edge is the one area where you win. The competitor can't match, and the customer actually cares. The mistake most teams make is focusing on all differentiators. But in a live deal, what matters is relevance, not quantity. Here's how to help your reps use it. First, identify your top 3 competitors. For each, map out what they do well, what gaps exist in their product or approach, and where your product wins in a way that's provable. Then work with sales to plug that into the first demo narrative. If your rep is going first in a demo, you want to frame the buyer criteria in your direction. For example, most teams just want to get up and running fast. That's why we focused on making setup simple with plug and play integrations and no custom dev work needed. Now, when a competitor shows up later and requires 3 consultants to get started, that anchor is already in place. If your rep is going second, the strategy flips. You need to reframe the conversation by surfacing something the competitor missed or spun the wrong way. So for example, yeah, some tools are rigid and opinionated on purpose, but if your team can't shape the product around how they already work, it's just not going to stick. That's why we made customization really easy. See, you're not trash talking the competitor. You're just helping the buyer see the light politely. Sellers don't always think this way though, and so that's your job as a product marketer. But let's be real, deals move fast and PMMs can't drop everything to craft wedges for every surprise competitor. That's where Klue's competitor profiles come in. Reps just type in a competitor's name into Klue and get an instant snapshot of how you compare, where you win, what to say. The intel pulls from G2, competitor sites, and your own content, and the profile refreshes daily, so the story's always current. No digging, no delays, there's no need to ping someone else for an update. So remember, competitive positioning doesn't start after the call, it starts during it. Help your sellers frame the problem, surface the edge, and anchor the deal in your direction. That's how you influence outcomes.